Last week, in a 90-minute scale audit, I found over 100K inside a business that was struggling with cash flow. 100K. Far, far more than they would need to completely turn the business around, just sat there waiting to be found by the right eyes. This business is doing about 30K a month in sales, but growth had plateaued over the last year. The tactics they'd invested in to try and move the needle weren't working, and as a result, they were stressed about cash flow. They were also considering spending about 6K on a website overhaul to mimic other brands in their space that looked like they were smashing it. But when I looked underneath the bonnet, the first opportunity was not the website, far from it. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I found and how I found it, because the likelihood is that you need to look at your business with the same lens too. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Thea. I'm a former CFO, a scaling strategist, and the founder of Calm, where we help founder-led businesses scale with more profit, more structure, and less dependence on the person who built them. When I run a CFO Scale Audit, I'm looking at the whole business, not just what's driving the revenue, but the layers underneath that too. The margins, the team, the marketing, the business capacity, the delivery flow, and the decisions the founder is trying to make. What I find every single time is a business screaming the answers. The answer as to how the founder gets breathing space back, how they can make more money, how they can make more impact, how they can get back to doing the work they love while the business around them thrives. So let me set the scene. As I said earlier, this business was doing around 30K a month in sales, but revenue had plateaued for the past 9 months. The founder had already tried a number of things that hadn't worked, and she was now looking at other brands in the space and thinking, their website looks so much better than ours, their product pages look stronger, their whole brand feels more developed. So the website had become the obvious suspect in her mind. And I do understand that, because when growth slows down, the visible things become very tempting. You can see the website, you can see your competitors' websites, you can see the gap between how your business looks and how the other business looks. What you can't see as easily are often the real things holding your business back. Certain costs sitting in your P&L adding strain to the business, founder time being spent on low-value work, or the difference between a marketing metric that looks like it's improving and a business that's becoming more profitable. That's why it's important to get a full, clear outside view. Let's look at what I found. One of the first places I always look for answers in a business is in the P&L. And immediately when I looked at this business, team cost stood out to me. As we discussed it, it became clear that there were 3 roles in the business that were not clearly contributing to growth. Together, those roles were costing around 5.5K a month. That's 66K a year, a major annual opportunity sitting inside the current cost base. Now, you might hear me say that and think, who is this person running a business carrying that level of costs that it doesn't need? Honestly, we all do this, myself included. Building and running a business is busy, hard work. It's very easy to overlook costs or to hold on to them for the wrong reasons if we don't regularly challenge them in the right way. This founder hadn't ignored them because they didn't care. They were overwhelmed, they were stressed, they were carrying too much of the day-to-day. And looking directly at team performance, role value, and whether people are earning their place in the business takes a lot of energy when you already feel stretched. So the roles just stayed, the costs stayed. What it needed was an unbiased outside eye to look at it and ask, what is each role here to produce? Is it producing that? What evidence do we have? What would change if this cost was removed, reduced, reallocated, or managed differently? So that was the first lever, and it was massive. It wasn't a new sales channel, it wasn't a website overhaul, just 5.5K a month already leaving the business without a clear enough link to growth. In a business doing 30K a month, that is a serious amount of pressure removed. The second thing that clearly stood out to me was founder capacity. The founder was still holding a lot of the scrappy operational work. Admin, checking things, chasing bits of information, moving things between tools, keeping loose processes together by hand, solving small operational problems that should probably not need the founder. And this was one of the easier fixes in the audit, because a lot of that work didn't need a senior hire or a big systems project. It just needed to be simplified, documented, automated where possible, and handed to a VA or someone similar. When the founder is stuck inside scrappy ops, which is very, very common, by the way, 2 things happen. First, their time gets eaten up by work that doesn't need their brain. And second, they lose the capacity to face the bigger decisions. The ad spend issue that we're about to discuss next sits there. The website decision becomes more emotional, and the founder keeps looking for a clean external fix because the internal fixes feel too heavy to face. Freeing the founder here wasn't complicated. It was a case of looking at what they were still doing each week and asking, should this exist? Should this be automated? Could this be turned into a repeatable process? Could a VA own this with a clear handover? That kind of work isn't glamorous, but it gives the founder their head back. And once the founder has more capacity, they can make better commercial decisions. The third thing I found was related to Facebook ads. The founder had originally been running the ads themselves. They were spending about $3,000 a month and they were getting a 2x ROAS. So $3,000 of ad spend was creating about $6,000 of sales. The gross product margin in this business was 80%. So $6,000 of sales gave them $4,800 of gross profit. Take away the $3,000 ad spend and the ads were contributing $1,800 to the business. Now, the founder hadn't scaled the ad budget because they felt the ads needed to perform better first. They'd heard that 2x ROAS wasn't amazing, so they'd outsourced it to an agency. The agency cost $1,500 a month, and they'd also hired a content freelancer for another $1,500 a month because the agency had wanted a lot more content to test. And the ROAS had improved. It went from 2x to 2.5x. On the dashboard, that looks like progress. The same $3,000 of ad spend was now creating $7,500 of sales. But of course, the business doesn't keep ROAS, the business keeps profit. So let's run the numbers again. $7,500 of sales at 80% margin gives $6,000 of gross profit. Then we take away the $3,000 of ad spend, then the $1,500 agency fee, then the $1,500 content freelancer, and the contribution left is zero. So the marketing number improved, but the commercial results got worse. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for in an audit, because if you only look at certain metrics in isolation, the decision looks sensible. If you look at the full commercial picture, the business has paid $3,000 a month to remove $1,800 of profit. The better question was, what is the best use of the next $3,000? Because if the same $3,000 had been tested as extra ad budget and the ROAS had stayed at 2x, the picture would have looked like this. $6,000 of ad spend at 2x ROAS gives us $12,000 of sales. At 80% margin, that gives us $9,600 of gross profit. Take away the $6,000 of ad spend and you have $3,600 of contribution. Now, of course, ad performance can change as spend increases, so you would test this carefully, but it is still a better commercial question than how do we improve ROAS? The question becomes, where does the next $3,000 create the strongest contribution? The fourth thing was the website. The founder was considering this $6,000 investment on a website overhaul. And the website may well have needed work, but at that point, it was producing profitable sales, and there wasn't enough evidence to say the website was a growth lever. They were looking at the website visually and comparing it to their competitors. They were thinking about polish and proof and how the brand felt. All really useful things. But before spending $6,000, I wanted to know, what's the conversion rate now? Which pages are people landing on? Where are they dropping off? What's the add to cart rate? What's the checkout conversion? How does mobile compare to desktop? What traffic is coming from ads? What traffic is converting? Which product pages are doing the work? The website might have been a good investment later, but cash flow was already tight. And there were things like $66,000 a year in unclear role costs going on inside the business. So the website was definitely not the next area to focus on to strengthen the business. This business case is just one example of what I find every week and why I want every single business doing multi-six figures to run this audit with me. It cost her just a few hundred to book it in, and we found over $100,000 that could be immediately unlocked in just 90 minutes. The big thing I want you to take away is this. Your next growth opportunity is definitely already visible inside your business. It's sitting in your data, your financial data, your marketing data, your reviews, your calendar. It's sitting in the gap between the numbers you are watching and the numbers that actually matter. So before you spend money on the next growth fix, do this. Look at one area of the business where money is already going out, a role, a freelancer, an agency, a tool, a channel, and ask, what is this here to produce? Is it producing that? What evidence do we have? And what would change if this money was removed, reduced, or used somewhere else? That one question can change the whole face of a decision. And if you want my eyes on your business, please book a CFO Scale Audit. In 90 minutes, we look under the bonnet, we read what is going on in the business and turn it into 3 prioritized objectives that will drive growth while giving you more breathing room on all fronts. I'll put the link below if you want to book yours. Here's to growth being far easier than it feels right now.